So, simple honest advice number one. Start by thinking about the problem. And through this, I'll kind of talk about some of my past experiences and some of the projects that I've been working on. Obviously, the Obama campaign in September of 2007, at the time, the problem was that political branding was never very consistent. You could see in some of the early attempts at what the Obama campaign looked like, it was kind of all over the place. A lot of the bad tricks in the book were being used: drop shadows, beveled edges, inconsistency in typography. The rising sun, which is the kind of white area of the logo, is completely dropped out. Like, you don't even see the white part, so it turns into this dark star logo. That was his announcement speech. That was day one of the campaign. A big misery for the logo designer, obviously. He didn't know how well this campaign was going to go after seeing that, and I think that made him a little nervous. So we knew that we had to get some consistency down. We also had another major problem, which was that the way people were going to learn about this campaign was through a website. And the web is, where we can gather the most information about an upcoming candidate, and it's important that that site is usable, user-friendly, easy to get information. And this wasn't a bad site. This is how the site looked when I started the campaign. It's not bad. There's 9 million typefaces being used and possibly 37 shades of blue, but that was because the designer at the time was actually colorblind and couldn't tell that there was that many shades of blue. And instead of having, a scroll bar, there are 1, 2, 3 scroll bars and one that you can't see over here, making for 4 scroll bars. I've always been a kind of the philosophy that less is more. The other thing that's happening is everything, all of the information, they're trying to scrunch up into that top half of the website, which is somewhat of a problem. Simple honest advice number 2. Determine your objectives. This is a really important part of the process, because if you have these very, very firm objectives, it makes it a lot easier to solve really big and complex and hairy problems. So, what were some of our objectives? We knew that this campaign was not necessarily just about Barack Obama the man. Instead, it was far more important that this was about Barack Obama as a person representing us. This campaign was about we. It was our voice. It was important that at any moment in the campaign, whether it be messaging, whether it be what sign you're holding in our hands, or how you were interacting with something on the website, it was very, very key that you were a part of that interaction. And take this as an example. Change we can believe in. That person's holding that high into the air, and that message all of a sudden becomes their voice. It becomes the person that's holding the sign, it becomes their voice. You can't hold a sign that says Obama and have it be your voice. I mean, it's Obama. It doesn't say anything that you believe, right? It doesn't say anything that you're trying to say. So in a way, the simplest thing, this piece of cardboard, is actually such a powerful way for us to know a little bit about what we actually believe in. That was one of our first objectives. The second objective that we had was we knew we wanted to keep this message of hope, while also dismantling the notion of being aloof. So here's a junior senator from Illinois. Things are happening all the time. This image is great because what you're seeing here, the word hope isn't necessarily represented by the word that's on those signs. It's represented by that beautiful rainbow. And shit like this was happening on the campaign trail all the time. Just rainbows kind of popping up in the middle. That's where the politics was actually happening, right here, where the rainbow meets. It's crazy. It's crazy. What's that? A double rainbow, yeah, nonetheless. That wasn't photoshopped either. Pretty crazy. It's amazing. The third objective we had was to communicate that this was a very historic time. And a lot of times, when you hear that as one of those lines, when you get a brief or when you see something, it's like, make this look historic. And so the first thing we do is we're like, let's use the word historic. No, let's not do that. Let's try communicating in a way that might be a little more under the radar, because it actually makes it far stronger. So to make something actually communicate that it's historic, just make it look historic. Simple honest advice number 3. Stick to the basics. This is actually my thinking process. A lot of people are like, okay, so you have these objectives, you form them, but how do you actually solve those problems? And for me, I solve the problem through using my hand and sketching and getting that stuff on the board. The way that you get these objectives out from people, get them in a room, lock them up, like get your client into a room, lock them up and say, we're gonna work on this, we're gonna hash this out right now. And it's amazing what happens when you start setting your hand onto a canvas or onto a whiteboard. I actually do all my sketches on canvas now. I've been collecting these over time, and then I keep gessoing over it, so it's kind of layered on and on and on. But all of a sudden, these like very small actions of writing something down, you're literally solving problems while you do it. Sometimes we think way too much in bullet points, but the second that you just start creating these very, very basic shapes on a board, people start to visualize and understand what you're trying to achieve. During the campaign, this was the diagram that I used to communicate the basic objectives that we had in the campaign. It's using these very basic shapes, rectangles. It's not exciting, it's not exhilarating, it's not a beautiful Photoshop document, but it gets across the huge point that we were out to persuade people. We were looking to raise money. We needed to activate people. We need to localize content and show you what's happening in your community and in your area quickly and effectively. We need to represent a large array of people groups. We need to make sure that we educate people on Barack Obama's past and where he comes from and who he is and what his beliefs are. And we also need to introduce people to this brand new politician. Make design a process. It's really important that we understand that design is kind of an ever-evolving thing. Nothing happens on the first stab. It just can't work that way. This is one of the first stabs of the Obama website. It didn't end up looking like this because we were like, doesn't this head look like he's a little like, kind of in the clouds? Maybe this is now, he's kind of like Darth Vader, a little too ominous. Dark blue might be a bit much, let's tone it down. What if we bring in the kind of pediment or the surfaces, the facades that we see in Washington, D.C., that almost like that like polished marble aesthetic? Can we use full color imagery, or is it going to be weird when when there's multiple different shifts in light temperature, color temperature, and the light that actually is happening? All of a sudden, the media, we were afraid, might respond by saying, oh, they're making a skin tone lighter now. So we needed to stay clear of that. We needed to be very, very cautious of how we were presenting Barack Obama on the site. Simple, honest advice number 5, look and listen. Obviously, all of that fine work on the website wasn't going to matter if people didn't get out and vote. That's like fundamental, right? Without getting people to the polls, Barack Obama would never be president of the United States. This is what I had to look at when we first started talking about registering new voters, because this is the process that you use in order to register to vote. This is the instructions sheet. You have general instructions. Okay, good. Then there's the application instructions. Literally 2 pages of instructions. One that's the general instructions to teach you what a piece of paper is. The second one to explain to you that in the name box you might want to put your full name. Thanks. Then you get to the voter registration application. I mean, this is complexity at its finest. Great. Thank you, America, for making this so easy to vote. I was astounded. We all were. And of course, in the campaign, it was clear that one of the things that we needed to do is register people to vote. And I got really excited when Chris Hughes, who was co-founder of Facebook, he started Jumo, came up to me and said, we're going to build a voter registration tool. I got really excited. I thought this was going to be a really awesome project. So it turned out being called Vote for Change. And the whole goal was basically to find out how to vote quick and easy. Simple, honest advice number 6, throw limitations out the window. One of the ways that you can accomplish solve some of these really complex tasks is if you take limitations and you just toss it. You don't even think about it. After the campaign, I had the desire to say, hey, this moment was historic. And I knew it, I felt it, and I wanted to document it before I move on to the next thing. Before I go work for the government, or before I do this, or before I go do that, I have to take the time and put this in writing. and let myself know and let the world know that this was something that happened. But that, of course, is a pretty complex undertaking. The publishing industry isn't exactly the greatest thing to work with, I quickly found out. How many in the room know of Kickstarter? Lots of you. Awesome. That's good. At the time, nobody knew of Kickstarter. There was only a few projects that had been going on at the time. And when I stumbled across this project, I told them I wanted to raise $100,000 in order to print the first edition of my book. And they looked at me like I was completely insane. Like, I don't even think we can handle that much money. Like, we don't even know if our web servers will handle the traffic. Are you sure? How about you raise $65,000? So I changed my pledge goal to $65,000, but we managed to raise $84,000. But I want to kind of share with you the intense process of creating this book. And I think it illustrates the idea of throwing these limitations completely out the window. Capable, I picked 3 printers, East Coast, West Coast, Chicago, close friends with USPS. I made enemies at USPS very quickly, designed the box, I designed the tape proofs, I went to New Hampshire to finally print this thing. Last minute changes, embossing problems, altered the design of the cover, plate making, color tweaking on the... Finally, I was able to distribute this book to tons of wonderful, wonderful people around the world who I hope will cherish it for the rest of their lives. It was truly a priceless experience. If you love something, you should make sure that you distribute it. And it's not always about profits. It's not always about gains. I published a book. After I published it, I placed it online as a PDF download for free, and I made every single page completely viewable in a web browser. I wanted to make sure that anybody that wants this book can gain access to it. We've had libraries for hundreds of years. We should be spreading the information and the experiences that we have with as many people as we can. Simple, honest advice number 7, design and build. As I mentioned that long list, I went to Japan, and this is something I had always wanted to do. I had always admired Japanese architecture, Japanese design. I was always highly impressed by their culture. One of the things that I learned there is the word kaizen. And kaizen means improvement or change for the better. It refers to a philosophy or practice that focuses upon continuous improvement of a process. Simply put, constant improvement. Nothing is ever perfect. You continuously have to design. The moment that you've designed something, you have to continue to design it again and again and again. To the simple, honest advice, number 9, write this down. Don't ask clients what they want. This is always a tricky one. So, let's go back to this guy. Oh, wow, he's animated a little too quickly, isn't he? But I have this great client because the reason they're my favorite client is because they're a true partner. And what I mean by that is it's a dear friend of mine who came to me with this great idea. And the idea was, I want to gather up all those little icons that communicate something, that have a message, all those little like pictograms that exist in the world. I want to collect our visual language. And I want to call it the Noun Project. And he told me about this 5 years ago. And we talked about it every time we would get together when we've moved various places and have done various things. But I thought it was such a good idea because this language has been attempted to be collected in the past, but it's never been actualized. It's never actually happened. So we figure, ultimately, this is the most unique way to communicate. Think how many times you're in like a foreign country or something, and this is your way that you move around the airport. This is the way that you know what that place does or what this place does. It's our visual language. So together we developed something called the Noun Project. And there was never a moment where I asked him, what do you want? What do you want me to build for you? It was, what are we going to build together? It started at the nug of an idea, and we were able to kind of grow this thing through time. And now, it's amazing. This project that we've generated $0 on, it's driven completely by the passion of gathering and collecting these things and putting them all in one place for designers to use as a resource. These are all free. These are already a part of the public domain or issued by Creative Commons to be used as long as attributed. Each one of these icons is for free. We just put it in one place. We put it in a convenient way for people to search and find it. It's one of our latest projects. you can quickly start typing a search term, pull up, four-wheelers, you can download it, you can see the information, like where it comes from. These are all SVG vector graphics, which is a new format available on the web. But one of the amazing things about it is it's truly a universal language, right? And in that, we can translate it into many different languages. So we, in a 2-week period of time, we translated it into over 24 languages, which is phenomenal. The way we did it was all crowdsourced. We just asked people, hey, we have this collection of icons, who wants to translate? And people responded. We created accounts for them and they were able to translate. So this language is now truly universal and is being distributed all around the world, and these icons are being used. Of course, we understand that the collection right now is small, and so now we're building the next part of it, which is actually user submissions. So essentially this can organically grow, and the entire collection of the world's visual icons will hopefully begin to appear on this platform. Simple honest advice number 10, follow your heart. I really honestly believe that if you follow your heart and you really put your mind to anything, whether it's big or small, and you give it a little bit of time to actually make it happen, and you let the gears start turning, you'll be rewarded for your work. Thank you very much.